Hi, everyone. I'm Isaiah Menning, and I'm starting a new ACC branch at Dartmouth College, but I'm proud to be a Utah native. I hope everyone's enjoying their time out here in beautiful Salt Lake City. I'm happy to introduce Steve Hilton tonight. Steve is the host of the Steve Hilton Show podcast and formerly hosted The Next Revolution on Fox News. He was previously senior advisor to UK Prime Minister David Cameron, where he led the Conservative Party's modernization program. Since moving to California with his family in 2012, he has taught at Stanford University's Institute of Design and was co-founder and CEO of the political crowdfunding platform CrowdPack. He has published a number of books, including the UK Sunday Times bestseller, More Human, Designing a World Where People Come First. Steve lives in the Bay Area with his wife, 2 sons, 2 dogs, and 10 chickens. I'm happy to share that our illustrious friend from across the pond became a U.S. citizen in May 2021. Join us in welcoming Steve Hilton to the stage.
All right, how you doing? Good to see you all. I have to say, before we get going, don't worry. I'm as keen to have a drink as the rest of you. I'm not going to keep you too long. Just bear with me. I'll try and get a move on, and we can go and get that drink that we want. You see, there's still, even though I am now a proud American, there's still that Brit left in me. I want to go to the pub. It's so great to be here. What an amazing, just amazing looking out here. I have to say it's very different from the Fox audience that I'm used to, that I imagine when I'm looking down the camera. I don't know if maybe you're all very sophisticated people. You're aware of the media industry and its terminology, and they talk about the demo, which is the demographics of an audience, and that's the much coveted demo in TV. Is the age group 18 to 55. And I have to say, looking around and seeing you here, this is definitely not the normal demo that we have on Fox. In fact, the way things are going, I think pretty much all of the demo could fit in this room these days. That's a joke, by the way. I wanted to just pick up on something Corey was saying. I don't know if Corey's still here. The love letter to the West, I definitely feel that. As you know, I moved here, was it now, 11 years ago. And actually, as a Brit for many years, there's a very close connection between London, where I lived and worked, and New York and the East Coast, and that's a very kind of common thing. And the West, the idea of the West, is just not something that is very familiar in British culture and in the awareness that we have of America. It's not how people think of America. They know New York very well, people who live in London, you go to California every now and again, but the West as an idea, it's something that I've completely fallen in love with as well. Absolutely amazing to have the opportunity to discover this incredible nature that we have all around us, although it doesn't always go well. The story that came to mind as Corey was talking was actually the first year that we were here, maybe the second year. I thought, well, what do Americans go on RV trips? They go on RV trips and they go to the national parks, and that's what they do, so we better do that. So we did indeed go on an RV trip, and I was reminded of that just flying over today. We flew over, just as we're coming over the Sierras, I was looking out the window, and there's Mono Lake. I don't know if any of you know that part of California, Highway 395, an amazing highway that we drove down. At the time, my 2 sons were very obsessed with learning to fish. Much as I love nature, I never learned to fish, and I was the worst person at trying to teach them to fish. But we tried, and we buy the fishing gear, and we go to all these places. We went to Whitney Portal on 395, Mount Whitney, as far as you can drive before you need the hiking permit. And there's this pond there, and people are fishing. And I've had a few days now of trying to teach my sons to fish, and it's not going well. And we have tangled lines, it's all a disaster. But I'm obsessed about them injuring themselves. And I'm a panicky father and kind of fussing around, trying to make sure that they don't get the hook in their eye or whatever. Anyway, I'm doing this with them at Whitney Portal, being the embarrassing dad. And sure enough, as I'm trying to help them, I'm the one that gets the hook embedded in my thumb at Whitney Portal. I then look around, it's absolutely agony. I can't move anyway without an incredibly painful thing in my thumb. And I go up to this guy do you remember that movie, The Big Lebowski? The Dude, remember The Dude? There's a guy there very much like The Dude, thankfully. I just never forget what he said. He said, I can get it out. I'll do the accent. I won't do the whole story in the accent because that'll be embarrassing. Just the last line. And he said, yeah, I can get out. Either I have to yank it out or push it through. But either way, it's going to hurt like hell. And it did. But that's my recollection of my time in nature here in the West. Another great moment, I have to say, Benji, I just want to say before I get to the real heart of what I wanted to say to you this evening, another amazing moment was off-piste snowshoeing down a mountain here in Utah with Benji. Benji is amazing. I think what he has built, what you're all here to celebrate and be part of, is absolutely amazing. The first time I encountered Benji, I remember thinking, that guy is the future. That is what we need for those of us on the, whatever you want to call it, Republican, conservative, on the right. That's what we need to be all about. And I'm so proud of what you've done and so incredibly impressed by what you've put together. In fact, you're all here. I think it's really important to recognize what an amazing achievement ACC is. Thank you, Benji, for that. So he asked me to talk a little bit about the experience that we had in the UK with the Conservative Party and the centrality, because it really was central, of the environmental message, the climate message to what we did. And I'll just start by giving you a little story, which was, I remember at the time, this was before David Cameron was Prime Minister. He was leader of the opposition. We have the parliamentary system, of course. So you have 5 years where you have to basically show what you would be like in the government. So you've got a lot of time to develop your policies and your strategy or your message and all the rest of it. And everything is on a shoestring. There's not the big money in UK politics that you see here. So basically, I was pretty much doing everything. I was running the policy development and the political strategy and the brand and the messaging and everything. And some people called that micromanaging. And I had a bit of a reputation for being on top of everything and trying to control everything. So imagine my surprise one day. It was a Saturday morning. I opened the newspaper. It was The Guardian, actually, in the days of the newspapers. And there on the page 3, the top half of the Guardian, was a story that said Chris Martin of Coldplay had signed on to write the theme music for the Conservative Party. And this is just as unlikely as an event as if, I don't know, here, Beyoncé had signed on to write the theme music for the Trump campaign. It's just not likely to happen. But the article went on to say that Chris Martin was so impressed with the Conservative Party's commitment to the environment, to the cause of protecting the environment, that he'd realized that he wants to support them and wanted to help out and write the theme music. And I just went by, what are you I'd never heard of it. How can this happen? I'm supposed to be the one in charge. I'm supposed to be the one that does the theme music. How can Chris Martin just show up and do this? Who approved this? I was like in a fury. And then, just before I was about to phone David Cameron, and I'm not going to say yell at him, but you know, I looked at the paper, April the 1st, April Fool's Day, and it was an April Fool. But the reason it's so significant is that it represents an amazing transformation that could even have been a plausible April Fool's story for The Guardian to choose. Because in the year or so running up to that, we had done such a good job of conveying our commitment to the environment that it became the thing that they chose for their April Fool. So to me, that was such a validation of what we did. And I just want to start by, I don't want to go on about the policy details. It was 20 odd years ago. I'm sure we didn't get everything right. I was only there for 2 years once we got into government before moving here. So many of you may be familiar with the record of the Cameron administration on environmental matters. It may not be perfect, and so on. But what I really want to convey to you is how important it was in the fact that we got elected at all, in the reappraisal of the Conservative Party. It was central to that. And the reason, actually, is, funnily enough, the thing I started off with, which is the fact that before we made those moves, the British Conservative Party was seen as basically a party of old white men, angry with the modern world, not interested in the future. You may think there are some parallels with politics in America today. I'm not going to validate that one way or the other, but that was the sense, broadly speaking. And so for us, the issue of the environment was the answer to that question that we got every single time, anywhere I went in those days and in the years before David Cameron became the leader of the Conservative Party. You'd go to some Conservative Party event and it would always be, how are we going to get the young people involved? We need young people. And I'm doing this because it really is people who are, down there with the young people. And, the answer is you'll get young people involved if you show that you're interested in the future, if you care about the future and you care about their future. That's why the environment is the issue. Is the issue to revive a moribund party that is seen as being against the modern world. That's the role it played. So where are we now here today in America? Of course we need to make that same commitment. That's why I'm so excited the minute that I saw the way Benji was making these arguments. But we've got to make sure that we get it right. Those of us who really care about the substance of the issue, about actually protecting our environment for future generations, about actually taking climate change seriously. And so the question is, what is the right balance? And this has been touched on in the conversations already. And to me, it comes down to a simple choice. And this is, it seems to me, where we are right now. The choice between extremism and optimism. Now, we see the extremism, I think, in much of the policy agenda that's being pursued by the left, certainly in California. But you see the extremism on the other side as well, from those who just completely dismiss any notion of engaging in the climate argument, who just say, no, it's ridiculous, what's wrong, drill baby drill, America. Of course, that's part of it, and we'll get to the details in a moment, but those are both extreme, actually. And they're both fundamentally pessimistic, as we've just been hearing. They're pessimistic. The left extremism is pessimistic because it's all about the doom-mongering that we've just been hearing about in that great conversation. But the extremism on the right is pessimistic as well, because it assumes that we can't make progress happen in America. We have to stay exactly the way we are, that we have to do things exactly the way we've always done them. That's the opposite of America. As a new American, I think I can safely say, the whole point of America is to do things differently, to build, to do things with innovation and creativity and energy and change the world, not just keep it the way it is. That's the point of America. So it's that extremism that says we keep our energy system and our economy running exactly the way it's always been. No, we have to reject that. To me, the answer is, as I just said, optimism, which is not only American to its core, it's also actually very conservative. Because the best version of conservatism, as far as I'm concerned, has always been the one that says, look, the reason that we're skeptical of big government and big bureaucracies telling people what to do and bossing everyone out and making rules that affect everyone's lives, just like Nolan was saying. The reason we're skeptical of that is that actually we believe that if you trust people and if you give them responsibility and if you give them the freedom to do the things they want to do, you will get better outcomes. That's the whole philosophy of the market economy. That's what conservatism is. It is optimistic about people. It's optimistic about human nature. It says if we trust people and give them freedom, they'll do the right thing, the world will be better. That is optimistic. And so the answer in terms of what's the right strategy on this issue of the environment and climate has to be that kind of optimism that trusts in markets and innovation and supports them and encourages them and removes the barriers to them. So it's not about government doing nothing. there is a role for government to get barriers out of the way, to give incentives, to start things. There's always been a role for government in that. Our great, I'm right in Silicon Valley. That's where I live. People look at that as an example of amazing free enterprise, and of course it is. But look where a lot of that came from. The government, in terms of the defense industry. So it's not about saying there's no role for government. Smart regulation, smart engagement, that is the way we do it. I'll just give you two examples that I think from California that show you the contrast. And the first one may seem like a small and trivial story, but to me it's incredibly representative of what's going wrong in terms of the extremism we see from the left. Some of you may have seen me talk about this. I am somewhat obsessed with it. It's the Balboa Island Ferry. I don't know if any of you have been on the Balboa Island Ferry or familiar with the Balboa Island Ferry. Newport Beach, Orange County. It's a sweet little ferry that takes about 4 or 5 cars across the harbor in Newport Beach. It's been in existence for 103 years, run by multiple generations of the same family, the Balboa Island Ferry. Guess what they're doing to the Balboa Island Ferry? They're telling them that it has to be electric. And the Balboa Island Ferry family says, it doesn't work. We're a tiny little ferry. If we had to be electric, the battery would be bigger than the ferry. It just doesn't work. There's nothing that's been invented. It would cost so much. It's impossible. We'll have to close it down. No, you have to electrify the ferry. Now, in the overall scheme of things, yes, we want to move to a clean energy future that's reliable and affordable and consistent with our climate goals. But do we really have to be such zealots about it that we have to force everything to be electrified right now, including the poor little Balboa Island Ferry? And it's stories like that that get people so enraged about the climate agenda, because they hear that and they say, what is wrong with these people? It's not about practicality, as Konstantin was talking about now. It's an ideology, it's zealotry, it's extreme, and we don't want it. And so you get a reaction against it. So what you actually want are solutions, and this is the second point that I wanted to offer as an example. You want solutions that people are attracted to, that they will actually say, oh, that actually makes sense. I'll go with that. So yeah, maybe this climate stuff isn't so bad. The example I'm thinking of in California is rooftop solar. Rooftop solar with the battery. It is the ultimate in that phrase that you hear all the time in conservative circles. You hear a lot on Fox News, energy independence. We want energy independence. We had energy independence under Trump. Biden's given away. Yeah, rooftop solar plus battery, that is energy independence for you. It's energy independence at the household level. It is incredibly popular. Every time I talk about it with conservative audiences, Republican events, everyone cheers. They love it. It's fantastic. But guess what's happening now in California? Literally, the regulations on solar have just changed to make it less attractive. They've actually made it worse to get rooftop solar in favor of subsidizing giant solar farms. It doesn't make any sense. It's extreme. It's got to be all one thing. Massive giant solar farms, massive wind farms. You can't have the Balboa Island Ferry and you can't have rooftop solar with you. It's just ridiculous. We have to be the optimists who have a vision of the future that is practical but also inspiring. And the final thing I want to say is how important your role is in that. Because in many ways, I've been in some form engaged in this kind of public policy battle for a very long time now. And the one thing that I can tell you is that the hardest thing to do is what you're doing. The hardest thing is to be the reasonable people who actually think about what works and how to make it happen and aren't just yelling and screaming and trying to get attention, who are actually serious about making the world a better place, not just looking like they want to make the world a better place. But that's what you're all doing, and it will win out in the end. And so it's so exciting to see you all here, because what we need to see and what you are fighting for, and I think really achieving as the arguments get played out, we need to see the triumph, the victory of the optimists, the victory of the reasonable people who actually want to make a difference and actually want to protect the environment for future generations. That's what all of you are doing. Please don't stop. It is so vital what you're doing. The fact that you're here, the commitment you've made, not just to being here, but when you go back and make these arguments and fight these campaigns and build the future. That's what you're doing. It's incredibly important, and I'm incredibly proud to be here with you, to celebrate what you're doing, and to thank you so very much. Keep going, everybody. Thank you very much. Good night. I said good night because I look at that accuracy. By the way, this is live TV for you. I stopped at 0000. I know what I'm doing. I don't know. Is there time for questions, or do you really want to go and get a drink? Questions? Okay. I can't see at all. There's the very bright light, but I'm very happy to take some questions if there's time. No? A drink? Yes. No, there's that question there? No. I think we're good. Fantastic. We love it.